We're good.
Brother, we're on.
All right.
How are you?
Fantastic. I'm so sorry. I had some technical difficulties, which is, well, to be expected sometimes. Welcome to our presentation. I'm John Stokinger. I am the co-host of No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, along with
Mateo Vasquez, co-host of the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast. I'm excited about this, John. This is going to be fun. Great discussion. Big week. Congratulations on 100.
Yeah, tomorrow, 100 episodes for No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast. Not to be remiss, I'm also the director of sales for Direct. If you could tell with the shirt and the hat, just kind of had to do our thing. But yeah, 100 episodes tomorrow. Excited about that.
That goes right into what we're about to talk about today, though, too, right? The beginning of where this all started and the topic of what we're digging into today are aligned. It's kind of like the universe came together.
Yeah, why us, right? Why are we doing the topic of longevity through culture? It's kind of how we met. It's kind of how the whole idea of the podcast started. We noticed some things that were a little bit off in the world and the industry, and we had great conversations. And it's how we came together truly and built a flourishing, brotherhood and friendship based, starting on, culture and understanding culture. And it's the whole basis of our podcast and why No BS is no bullshit. It's why we are who we are, and it's why we're a little bit different. And shoot, we made it to 100. So I'm pretty stoked by that.
Let's dig into this.
Yeah. So, but why are we why are we more qualified, I guess, than someone else to do this? Why do you think?
To me, it's obvious. It's the DNA and the foundation of our podcast is culture in people. And it's especially now more than ever, having conversations around the value of culture to a business. As our industry professionalizes, our industry grows, as our industry becomes more inclusive, more diverse, culture is pervasive, and not just as a nice to have, but as a strategic business principle. That there's data to support is great for your business, good for your business, right? And so, these are the things we're going to dig into today, because culture is not an easy thing. It's not a static thing. It's not constant, right? We're going to dig into all of the little nuances around, culture being a hype word, overhyped, and what the real value of it is. And we got some really good surprises for some people today, man. So let's dig into this.
Yeah, we did tee it up on the on social today, but we had some pretty cool guests that have voiced their opinions and their answer to a question regarding culture in the workplace. But let's talk about what is culture versus sustainability.
Fair. Culture, as it's defined, refers to values, beliefs, behaviors, practices, within our context of which organizations and companies, identify themselves and identify their environment, how their employees and stakeholders see, view, and interact within a company and within their environment. It's essentially, it really is what it is. It's, culture is it's the essence of a company, man. It's what you are, and not necessarily what you say you are, but what you really are, what your values are, what values you live. All of those things make up what culture is. And it's more important, arguably more important now, more than ever, to a company from all aspects of the business. And we'll dig into that in a minute. But, in terms of sustainability, how do these two things play off each other? Like, why is
sustainability, on the other hand, it refers to the ability to operate a business in a manner that preserves and enhances the natural, social, economic resources and support its existence, right? And growth over like long term, not just today. So if we're looking at culture and sustainability as a unified unit here, it's kind of a, culture and sustainability have a symbiotic relationship to each other. And without one, true growth can't happen in a way that's actually gonna like benefit those that are within the whatever system it is, for the long haul. You're not looking at, you have blinders on if you're just focused on now, or you're focused on what it was. But if you're not looking at the future, and you're not looking at, all the generations that are involved and part of a company and that make up that fabric that is company culture, you can't have, without the sustainability part, you're not going to be sustainable if you're not focused on culture, and culture isn't going to come through if you're not, have a sustainability focus as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because a lot of times people just throw sustainability in the bucket of environmental sustainability, right? But if you break down the word, it's the ability to persevere, right? The ability to persist and to last, right? It's thrown in the environmental bucket quite a bit, because we're looking at how can we sustain on this planet, like how do we protect the environment? But it is so much more than that, and we're going to dig into that today. So let's look like to jump in our way back machine and jump way back 5 years. Let's jump back way back pre-COVID, right? Let's kind of talk about like what were the buzzwords, and what were HR companies, and what were these companies that are looking to retain, or attract and retain top talent. What was the important things for them when building, especially in like a tech landscape, in a sales landscape. I'm gonna take the low hanging fruit. I'll tell you what they weren't talking about. I mean, and maybe very few were talking about this then.
All right.
Remote work, dude.
What's that?
Remote work.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean,
it was not a thing. It was a maybe thing. There were very few companies. Like the digital nomad thing was oh, that'd be great if it happened. But it wasn't like embraced in the way it is post-COVID. That to me is the largest thing.
The important, what it was back then, and what it was all the, hey, we got ice cold kombucha and beer on tap.
Oh yeah, and ping pong tables and beanbag chairs.
We got a ping pong table. It's hip and cool and vibe. Here, check out these crazy beanbag chairs and this view of the city, and like everyone just kind of does and works their own thing. It was so different back then. But to attract the talent that was out there, you needed to go that direction. And company culture was almost like it was fake. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was kind of fake. It was like, this is who we're going to be. It was a fake culture to attract talent.
Yeah.
And then it kind of turned and metamorphosed into this thing, but it wasn't. What ended up happening is, boomers and Gen Xers and maybe some Gen Y, they are like, shit, we need to go ahead and attract millennials. We need to attract Gen Zs. If we don't do these things, they at least realize that that's where the talent source was. And they realize that this is what's going to keep their companies moving forward. And they realize these things. So what are the cool kids want? What do they need? And it wasn't necessarily genuine.
Right.
And I think what has happened, and kind of moving on to today, and we're going to talk about that, what happened back then was it not being genuine and with COVID and remote work, the influx of remote workflows, it's definitely changed, and it's made it more genuine, and it's made it better and more accessible for the future.
I agree, but I think it's become a non-negotiable now also, right? Like now it's in certain places, and let's be very clear, this isn't universal across the board, right? Like there's people on the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum that can't and will never be able to work from home, right? Like it's just not, there's certain, we're talking about even within our space, but it's a non-negotiable now. Like,
Right.
but it's also given companies the ability to reach talent in places where their reach may not have gone before, because now, you don't have to relocate someone for a certain position. They can actually work from wherever they want, right? Empowering that kind of digital nomad lifestyle that our industry is 100% the beneficiary of.
Right.
Right.
I mean, a great comment came into like Roberta Murrow made a comment. She said, I've been working remote for my company since 1981. Like, oh, wow. Like, I've been doing it for 8 or 9 years. Like, so I've been doing it longer than most, but 81?
Yeah, that's
OG. That's amazing. And obviously that company she worked for prioritized it and gave her, access to things and understood the need. So great example of culture and of work culture. But with it, let's talk about.
I think there's other obvious things too, right?
Yeah.
Like DEI and inclusivity was like a big buzzword, but the work behind it lacked significantly. I think everything that happened over COVID, everything that's happened like pre-pandemic, like during the pandemic time, has brought a renewed kind of vigor to the space, and we're seeing change, right? Like we're seeing
Harvard Business Review came out and stated through a McKinsey report stating that it's good for business. Having a diverse workforce with different backgrounds is good for business.
We mean not just in inclusivity. Like we're not just talking about ethnic or gender. We're talking about like literally across the board and checking off all those boxes, which at the end of the day, it makes sense. When you have a community that's diverse and reflective, your businesses should be diverse and reflective too.
The other things it's
good to see the data backing that up, and now that it's not just a feel-good play, but it's actually hey, this is good for your business play, right?
Tech has made this possible.
Of course.
And tech stacks have made this accessible. And the importance of work, like in a study, in newer studies, that the work like millennials and Gen Zs would rather focus on work-life balance. And they'll take that over, say, salary and bennies, right? Like they want a work-life balance. So that ties right into culture. And so what are the kind of, what culture are you building, and what are you as a business prioritizing with regards to culture? Which takes us to what today, right? We looked at the past, we looked at where it was, we've looked at how we've gotten here. But, your companies, like
you got to walk it like you talk it now. Like it's saying it now doesn't, it just doesn't work anymore, because people are not going to stay in environments that it's just like, I give the bad dating analogy, right? Like I was great in the beginning. You got through the date, then now you're in the relationship, and the relationship is not what you were sold in the dating phase, right? Like you got to walk it like you talk it. So companies are having to create these cultures for real, not just post these values somewhere and say, this is who and what we are, and not back it up, because there's a generation of workers that now they're looking at these things. Your customers are looking at these things, right? But let's not take my word for it. Like I think we got some backup.
A couple of things here. Let's ask the audience who's listening, if you're live and you're listening, what changes have you seen since you started in the workforce to today with company culture, specifically in the roles that you're working in, the companies that you're working for? Is there anyone that has seen any immense positive changes with regard to culture and the longevity? Well, we'll kind of let the chat fill that in if they do go ahead and fill that in. More diverse coworkers, because we aren't limited to hiring a small time. I love this. Because of remote, you have the ability to hire a diverse workforce representing different backgrounds and different experiences. and bringing different things to the table, and different, like, the positive thing about this is it's not just, internally and with where you're working, it's your output is going to change as well, because based on experiences and based on, the output your company is putting together and the breadth in which you're reaching potentially can be different and more expansive and grand, because this diverse workforce you have access to now.
Yeah. Yeah, people got options.
Absolutely. So what's that?
No, I was just gonna say, like, that's brought us to the present, right? And we are lucky every week we get to talk to leaders in this industry. We get to talk to business owners and CEOs and innovators in this space. And, we get to see the effect of culture every week, but they're the ones that are creating the businesses. They're the ones that are using culture as a strategic, function of their business, ingraining it into the foundation of their business, not just because it's the cool thing to do, but because it makes good business sense, and not all for the same reason. So I think where we are today versus where we were, 5 years ago, don't take our word for it. Like, let's listen to some leaders in our space who, will give you their take on culture and what culture means to their business as a strategy.
Absolutely. And so we went ahead and we asked a specific question. We went ahead and reached out to industry professionals to kind of share their what culture means in their business means to them. And so we're going to share a video, and then actually potentially pause between some of them depending on the time, and kind of talk about it. So this is, pay attention. This is some pretty cool stuff.
John, is there sound?
Not on that one.
Okay, just making sure.
But there is sound.
Shout out to Vanessa for sending this in for us. We really appreciate her.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at that right there with Vanessa, and where, I mean, if I go back and if we're looking at the, being right here, it's amazing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different companies represented at Rentals United when Vanessa was there. It's fantastic. And, you're not going to get a more diverse, culture if you tried.
I mean, look at those places.
It's unbelievable. All right, here we go.
Familiar face.
Here we go. Let me push play again.
Culture has an outsized, extraordinary impact on the long-term prospects of any business. Why? Because it's about the people. The people are what make any business work or not work. And so when you think of culture, think of it as a magnet. You're going to attract the certain type of people who vibe or fit into that culture. And you'll also expel or just repel the people who don't want that culture or want to work that way.
Love it. I absolutely love it. Hey, Jenna, you're here. You can chat. You worked at Rent Responsibly. You know what it's like. You are, what are your thoughts to Dave's quick snippet there?
I think a big thing that he's right, it's magnetic, but it's the consistency that we continue all the time to push that culture. It's not that we start a Slack channel called Wellness and never post in it. We've been posting in it for 3 years consistently as a team. So I think a lot of people will push out new initiatives that get pushed to the side after a couple months. So I think that consistency is huge.
Love it.
I think it's also leadership too. Seeing that it's coming from the top, the first thing out of Dave's mouth is it's people. And that's a fact. Because none of this matters if your people aren't taken care of and your people don't believe in your culture. So I'll put a pin in that. We'll get into more later around that. But
to continue.
Hey there, no BS short-term rental podcast universe. This is Margot Schmorak. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hostfully, and I'm here to talk to you about culture. Culture is the reason why I am the CEO of Hostfully. The reason why I wanted to start my own company is because I wanted to be in a company where one could be fully integrated at work and at home, where I am right now. So culture is really at the core of everything we do at Hostfully. We believe that it drives the way that we interact with customers, the way that we grow our business, the way that we make hard decisions, say goodbye, and do all the fun stuff too. So it's really the key to our success, and it has put our business in an amazing position where we are right now, where we're thriving and we are getting to enjoy the amazing changes that are happening in the short-term rental industry.
Love it. Thank you so much, Margot, for chiming in. Mateo, what sticks out to you most in her snippet there? I can tell you what sticks out to me.
I think she checks all the boxes, and it's hard to say. It's hard to say that they're not the GOAT right now in this space and doing it, because you look at what they do. They care about their people. They measure their people. It's in their actions. Like, you look at Hostfully and you see, when you look at that company from top to bottom and how they interact, it speaks for itself. Like, whenever we have these conversations, the companies that are killing it in this space and that are also killing it in business, Cassiola, Hostfully,
love it.
I mean, there's a list. I don't want to go in rank and order, but those are ones that we see continuously through actions, right? We're talking about walking it like we talk it.
Yeah, verb. Yeah.
What
stuck out to me were hard decisions and say goodbyes.
But it's everything, John. It's
I know,
not just
but I'm
those
saying,
things.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But what sticks out to me is how is that, you know, most just focus on the positive and like then talk about the company culture being all this, but company culture is much more than that. And the fact that how they live and breathe and act every day helps and guides them through the hard decisions and how they say goodbye. I mean, the nice thing about saying goodbye with the positive work culture is that 90% of the time, you know, that bridge isn't burned.
Yeah.
You know, there's a way back. If everything was done correctly, there's a way back. And I love that about her. I love that about Hostfully. Let's keep on going here for time.
What's up, John and Mateo? Wes here from Direct. Thanks for asking for my input on this topic. It's an important one. And when I think of the role that culture and diversity plays in my company's long-term success, I'm reminded of a pretty awesome quote by Malcolm Gladwell, where he basically stated the power of an idea really comes from a diverse mix of perspectives, which I couldn't agree with more. My vision for the company is grand, and I'm super fortunate to be surrounded by a team of individuals from different backgrounds and with different perspectives, which I think encourages innovative thinking and really drives us to find creative solutions for the market so that we could better execute on this vision. Now, we've really created a culture at Direct where everyone's voice is heard and good ideas can come from anyone at any time. And this sort of an environment, I really think helps us grow and tackle new challenges head on, which is very important. So I guess by embracing diversity and fostering a culture of inclusion, you know, we're not only setting ourselves up for success and helping ourselves as individuals and the company move forward, we're also helping the industry move forward. So I think it's a very important topic. Thanks for having me on, and keep up the great work with the podcast.
Obviously, Homer here, but you know, culture is a huge reason. You know, outside of tech and where they're going, like culture at Direct is a huge reason why I chose to go there over some other companies. And the great decisions and great ideas can come from everyone. It's embedded into what the company is and what Direct is doing. And, you know, yes, we have a hierarchy like most, but there's no, you know, like if you have a great idea, you know, let's chat about it, let's talk about it, and let's come to a consensus. There's no truly bad ideas. And I think this is super important for building and maintaining a positive work culture for the future.
You know, I agree 100%. And it's the same reason I took this job with Guestor, is to build a community and build a culture and change the face of investment within our space. And being able to work with leaders like Dennis, and we were talking today, and it was, talking about this and what I was going to say here. And he was like, man, it really breaks down to three things. It's people, planet, and profit. And you can build a culture around that where those things aren't mutually exclusive and they work together. We'll get into the future later, but
yeah. All right, let's keep pushing along here.
Hey, John and Mateo, Dawn Yeskulsky with Inhabit. Thanks for reaching out and asking my perspective regarding company culture and why it's so important to Inhabit's business landscape. In today's corporate world, we're constantly bombarded with this concept of company culture. But here's the thing, creating a strong company culture, it isn't easy, and it's not something that can be achieved overnight. It really takes time, it takes effort, and it means being willing to listen to open and honest feedback from our employees and then make those changes when they're necessary. At Inhabit, this means creating opportunities for employees from all types of diverse backgrounds and contribute very unique perspectives and ideas, and making sure that everybody has access to the same opportunities for advancement, growth, career path mapping. We're constantly investing in employee training and development. Promoting work-life balance is huge, and encouraging open communication and collaboration across all levels of the organization. I would say company culture is more than just a set of values or beliefs or an impressive mission statement. It really is a way of life for employees. It defines the very essence of an organization. When it is good, you can feel it. I would say it's that driving force for constant improvement, pride in your work, innovation, productivity. And for many of us, it provides a sense of purpose.
Love it. Thank you,
Great.
John, for chiming in. And what is interesting for me with all of these and everyone that shared so far is, the big difference that Dawn said it's hard. And I don't necessarily think that everyone would say it's hard, but she has her Inhabit hat on, which is a very large company, and it's a meld of lots of smaller companies that's come together. It's a giant acquisition company. So I could see from her standpoint how it could be, needs to be intentional to go ahead and bring focus or culture to the forefront, and by listening, because you're coming from all these different company backgrounds through the acquisitions of. So it's an interesting standpoint, and I applaud Inhabit for focusing on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly challenging. It's not static. It's
ever moving and ever changing.
I think if it was easy, more people would be getting it right, to use that worn out saying, but I mean, it's truth.
Awesome. So we got 15 more minutes. We got a few more minutes of this here. So I'm going to keep pushing play. Got a great guest coming up here.
John, Mateo, thanks so much. Big fan of the podcast, and really grateful to be able to participate. At Vacasa, we believe culture is more important than strategy. There's a great quote. I can't remember who said it. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I've always been a big believer in that. And so we spend a lot of time talking and thinking and working about how we execute together as a team, how we collaborate together to deliver for our homeowners, for our guests, and for all of the communities that depend on us. When we think about diversity, I think about diversity as a key driver of culture. Especially in today's day and age, it's so easy to see organizations, companies, individuals that can get fossilized by the success that they've enjoyed in the past. And so from my perspective, diversity is a way to bring diverse points of view to problems. It's a way to bring diverse people around different issues, different backgrounds. In my experience, have led to better outcomes. The research actually shows that very directly. I think the other element that I'd call out around culture when it comes to diversity is what we at Vacasa inherently try to cultivate, which is a which is a passion around curiosity. And curiosity means that we're going to be frustrated with the status quo. We're going to therefore have to willing to be wrong. We have to be willing to be wrong a lot. We're going to have to be trying new ways of working and challenging what we think are our assumptions. That means we also have to be humble when we're right, because at the pace of change that we're all seeing in the market, in the economy, in our business today, we're going to get things right, but those things are going to continue to change. And that takes us, that means that we have to have a mindset around humility. That means we also have to be very accepting of change. Being willing to try new things is going to means to be willing to do things differently and to not hold on to those things. And it means that we have to bring a passion to be better. So I think diversity is about making sure that you have the different perspectives that you can always bring around problems, around issues, around opportunities, that you pursue those things with humility, and that you always bring that passion to be better. So thanks again for asking me to participate. Big fans of what you guys are doing on the podcast. Thanks so much.
Imagine being in Rob Greyber's shoes.
Nope.
Imagine that, imagine coming in as the guy hired to patch the holes in a ship as it's going down.
But first of all, before you even, you have to be, let's be honest, it's a Lego ship too, and not dogging it, but it's made up of so many different parts, so many different acquisitions, so many globally.
Right. I love his response.
That I could see being an enormous challenge, because, talking about culture, scaling culture, it's
the fact that you have to be okay to fail and you have to be humble when you're doing things right. It wasn't that way with past leadership. It was early on. It wasn't that it's gone through some different phases, Vacasa has, and to, to be clear, this is my personal opinion. And I think I speak for Mateo as well, is that I think we all as an industry win if Vacasa wins as well, is successful as well, if it comes out of this well. And I love his approach. I don't necessarily love everything that Vacasa is doing, and but I understand that it is a undertaking that is like, it's mind blowing.
Heavy is the head, right? That wears the crown, right? And let's just be very clear in that space, and call me what you want, say what you want. It's just it's the fact of the matter. We heard it from Don. We know it from Rob. Like, this is an incredibly challenging thing to do at a small scale, right? There are very few companies out there anywhere that get this right all the way through and get it right consistently. We're talking about sustainably. So like getting it right today, getting it right for tomorrow, so that you have a culture that continues to give your business the competitive advantage that it needs to outpace the competitors in the market, right? Outpace the other people in that space. That's why I go back to leadership. That's why we wanted to talk to the leaders of these companies, the founders of these companies. Like, what does it mean to the DNA and the fabric of your business? Because it is a crucial component to your business's success. We're not even arguing that anymore.
No.
Now we're talking about, how do you do this? How do you build it sustainably? Because what we showed was yesterday's culture is not today's culture and not going to be tomorrow's culture. So how do you build with that in mind?
Well, let's a couple more things here we want to get through. So let's get to the next. Resha, I'll go ahead and push play here, but a shout out to Resha, CEO, Lynx, for jumping in and putting this statement on as well. I'll go ahead and push play. Interesting thing with this is, I wonder what those 5 core principles are. We need to go ahead and ask her, because I'm curious of that. All right, and lastly, we asked all of our favorite, founder and CEO, Mr. or Mrs. and or they, Chat GPT, to answer Well, this question, the same
It's
question.
only fair, right? Like,
Yeah. So go ahead and read this, watch the screen, check this out. This is their answer.
I love it though.
So let's pause on here real quick. So here are the key reasons why culture is important to a business long-term success via
according to ChatGPT. Yes.
ChatGPT. I mean, to talk about that, attracts and retains top talent. So, I mean, it makes sense to me. A positive company culture can attract top talent by creating desirable work environment, right? Like these are things when employees feel valued and supported, they're more likely to stay with a company for a long time.
Correct.
Duh. Yeah, I said duh. All right. Increase employee engagement. A strong culture can help increase employee engagement by motivating and leading. This leads to increased productivity and job satisfaction.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense to me. Thanks, ChatGPT.
I think this one is now more than ever. This next one.
Customer loyalty. Yeah. Positive culture can enhance customer loyalty by creating a brand that customers trust and feel connected to.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back. This is brand. We talk about brand all the time on Novia Short-Term Rental Podcast. We are beating the brand drum all the time. Well, to go ahead and get that brand and what you're trying to do, it starts with company culture. Facilitate change and innovation, right? Strong culture can facilitate change and innovation by creating a supporting environment that encourages employees to take risks and experiment with new ideas. That's how change happens. That's how things. And lastly, improves decision making. Positive culture can improve decision making by creating a shared understanding of the company's values and goals. Thanks, ChatGPT. But it makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes a ton of sense. And so it's interesting asking ChatGPT to come in. We got just a couple minutes left here. It looks like Mateo, what are the takeaways?
Well, I got a couple of questions for the audience while we talk about this too, right? Like, I don't know if we got people in here who run businesses or ever, but I want to know, from the business side, how do you view culture from a strategic standpoint? If there's anybody out there that feels like answering that question, like we asked our CEOs. But then again, the question that I really have is like, how do you build a lasting culture? Whether you work for somebody, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an innovator within the space, other media, like how do you build something that's going to last from a cultural perspective? That's my question, because to me, that's the rub, right? Getting today right is always right, like a step behind, because you're like everything is changing. So, that's really my question. And, how do you revolve and not regress?
Love it. These are the questions that we need to be asking, it's, asking yourselves. Yeah. These are, the companies that we see and we engage with that are pushing the envelope and making positive strides and just really, really excelling. And the founders that we talk to that are absolutely freaking crushing it are the ones that are prioritizing a workplace and a culture that enhances creativity and encourages, diversity and encourages thought process and connections that others. We've all worked for those companies that micromanage you, that are just don't necessarily have the direction and the focus, where it needs to be. Right. And if the culture is where it needs to be, it kind of just it moves and breathes on its own. It doesn't necessarily, yes, it's always a focus, but it isn't necessarily, like a priority. Is like we need to make sure that culture is, that we're focusing on culture, because it just is. Yeah. Like, and it's a thing. Here's a let's see. You must consistently ask the staff for their input, not just the owners on every decision. Not that you may use it, but just feel like they're a complete part of the company. Hence why some of my crew has been around for 25 years. I love that statement.
That's amazing. Leslie, that was an awesome quote.
Like, I love that, like, ask questions, ask for input, ask for feedback, use it or don't, but keep it, if you are involving your clients, if you're involving your employees in whether it's a decision-making involvement or just involvement so they're heard, that's important. I love that.
I think it goes back to what Rob said about I took it from a leadership standpoint of embracing humility, right? And understanding the strength of humility and the leadership quality of embracing strength through humility and the ability to listen to your team, to glean good feedback, right? That's why you're the leader. Like, that's why you drive the organization. So, yeah, Leslie, that was a fantastic quote. Thank you for that.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much. I think we're at time, so I'm going to let Jenna do her thing.
Thank you guys for coming. That was great. And it definitely does hit home for Rent Responsibly, like you guys heard from Dave in his input. So thank you, John and Mateo. We have one session left, and it is a great panel of behind the scenes of thought leadership and how to build your influence. So click join to hear John, Natalie, Heather, Dana, and Tatiana share their experiences. You'll also get closing remarks from Dave. This time he will be live and not a recording. So stick around. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.